So I had a loaded firearm. I had it to my throat. At one point, I had it in my mouth. You know, sometimes when you haven't dealt with addictions, it's hard to understand the true feelings. I mean, you can learn about it and all of those things, and you can imagine what it's like, but until it rips your heart apart, I find that it's really hard to really relate.
Lived experience is an education second to none.
This is Hard Knox Talks.
Stacey, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me.
It's been a long time coming.
Yes, it has. 2 years.
Yeah, we were at a camp out, 2 years ago, and we were all like, yeah, let's do it. And then life happened, and but here we are.
Finally,
yes. And you are, so you're a person in recovery, which is how we met, really. You're an RN at the Dubé Centre, which is an acute care psych facility, which for all intents and purposes is a psych ward here in Saskatoon. You've experienced homelessness, you've experienced poverty, domestic violence, you're a sexual abuse survivor, you've experienced caregiver burnout, moral injury, workplace violence, workplace bullying, you're a suicide attempt survivor, you're a parent of children with complex needs. You are a warrior, and I am honored to have you here today.
Thanks so much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a roller coaster of things, that's for sure.
Yeah, and the adventure continues. To this very day, you know, I got a message from you before you showed up saying I'm going to be a little bit late. I couldn't get my kid out of the house. And I wasn't aware that you were a parent of children with complex needs. So where would you like to start? I know that you have a very extensive story, and I would not be surprised if your story turns into like a mini series on this podcast, because it's going to be so hard to cover all of it. But why don't you start at the beginning? Why don't you tell us a little bit about what it was like growing up and what it was that set wheels in motion to the experiences that you've had?
Sure. I grew up in a small town in BC on northern Vancouver Island. My parents were separated when I was young. My sister had ADHD, and at the time it wasn't really very well known, and we lived in a small town. So my mom had to kind of go to a lot of appointments with her, and I often felt like I was on my own a lot. We used to be in a daycare that was not very great, and the parents would fight with each other all the time, and we'd have to hide with the kids underneath the bed and all sorts of scary things. And so I just saw a lot of things when I was younger that I maybe didn't need to see. My dad worked as a paramedic, and so he would do like 4 on, 4 off. And so he would be gone from our town and then come back for a few days. Anyhow, he was staying in Vancouver for quite some time and got with his landlord, and they've been married for 25 years now, so that's all right. But just left my mom high and dry. And my dad used to bad talk my mom in front of us. My dad drank quite a bit. My mom never really drank ever, but she always had alcohol in the house. So it was very easy for me to steal it and drink. I started drinking when I was about 12 years old.
So it sounds to me like you knew, like, when you started drinking that it wasn't okay.
Yes.
Okay, so you were sneaking this, and what brought that on? Like, was it just curiosity, or did you already have a notion of wanting to feel better, wanting to feel different?
I think because there wasn't a whole lot of things to do in our town, people just drank and smoked a lot of weed. I remember once coming home when I was like 14 and hugging the toilet and throwing up, and my mom was so mad. And I was just like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
I'll never drink again.
Yeah. And then the next day drinking again.
Yeah.
So I think I just felt kind of alone, and that I felt not really loved because my mom was with my sister so much. So I think I tried to find love in other things like boyfriends, or, you know, drinking and trying to make friends maybe with people that I shouldn't have been friends with. When I was 14, my mom and I got in a large argument, and we ended up in an altercation, and I beat my mom up, which was awful. To this day, I still feel very guilty about it. And that night, I ran away from home. And the next day, I said, I'm not coming home. And I went to a foster home. The lady wasn't very great. She kind of just lived upstairs and everybody partied in the basement. I just kind of was another kid there. And she didn't make supper for anybody or anything. There was a freezer full of pizza pops and everybody ate pizza pops and drank and did drugs in the basement. There was a lot of people staying there. Everybody would have sex in this big room or whatever. And it was just, I mean, I was 14. I knew it wasn't so great. And so I thought, okay, well, it'll be much better if I just go and stay with my friend and her parents. So then I did. And her mom used to pull alcohol for us all the time. We would just drink like an 18 case every day, me and my friend. So when I was 15, I had a boyfriend. And when we were 13, my friend in high school had a baby at 13 and made it look so easy. And she had somebody that loved her so much. And I thought, oh, I should just have a baby because that baby will love me so much. So when I was 15, I had a boyfriend and we said, okay, we're going to have a baby. And the first time I got pregnant. Wow. And that was an interesting time for sure. And then I ended up having a miscarriage when I was about 3 months pregnant. And I wanted that baby so bad. And then, when I was in grade 12, I was doing a lot of drugs. I got pregnant again. I wanted to keep that baby. But my mom was like, no, that baby's going to be so messed up from all the drugs that you do and all the drinking and everything else. I still pay for things for you. You're currently living in my basement with your boyfriend. You're not having this baby. And so I had to go for the abortion. It was awful. My boyfriend and I then started having major problems because he kept calling me a murderer. Those words stuck to me. Even still now, I can still see it. Then it didn't take long until I had another boyfriend. And then I ended up getting pregnant again. And so I actually stopped drinking. I stopped smoking. I stopped doing everything while I was pregnant. Originally, I was not going to keep my daughter. I was going to give her up for adoption. But my mom and my daughter's dad were like, no, you're never going to forgive yourself. My daughter's dad was like, we're in this together. It's going to be great. Let's just have this baby. So I ended up having her and keeping her. I think because the whole time I wasn't planning on keeping her, that I didn't really form like a bond with her. And so I didn't love her right away. And so once she was like 6 weeks old, I think my mom took her for the night and I just went out and got so drunk. And this one girl pissed me off, and so I punched her in the face. And then I cried because I was like, oh no, now I'm going to get my baby taken away because I punched this girl in the face. And so when my daughter was 4 months old, I moved to Saskatchewan, to Saskatoon. And her dad stayed in BC. And then I went to school here. I got into the rehabilitation worker program, which is kind of like the disability support worker program now.
What brought that on?
My mom said like I needed to go to school or I needed to do something. And I always wanted to be a nurse. I thought, okay, well, this is only like a 10-month course. I'll be able to have a good job after. I can do it. And so once I got here, of course, you just kind of fall into the people that you're used to hanging out with. My sister was 17 and had to move to Saskatoon. And she did not want to live with my mom at the time. So she lived with me. And so I just kind of abandoned the baby with her and did my own thing. And so for a year probably, I just kind of left my sister with the baby a lot. My sister and I used to get in lots of fights. Somebody had had a baby in a Walmart bathroom, and then they had made this thing that you could go and drop any baby off at a fire station if you wanted, no questions asked. And so my daughter was just driving me crazy. I couldn't handle it. I'm sure I had postpartum depression and just was not diagnosed. I told her dad, I said, you know what? I can't handle being a parent. I cannot handle it. This is crazy. You told me we were in this together. I'm going to drop this baby off at the fire station if you don't come and get her
Mm-hmm.
or come live here and help out. And so I gave him a month's notice to come. And within a week, he had sold all his stuff and was out here. And we lived together for about a year, but lived separately in like different rooms.
Mm-hmm.
And we had very different parenting views, but he pretty much just let me do whatever. And I would just disappear for days and days at a time. I was losing a lot of money. I was not being a good parent. I was putting drugs before anything. And so I always knew I wanted to be a nurse. And so I thought, okay, well, I'm going to start upgrading and try and get into nursing at some point. And so I used to take classes at night at SciAst. In my third year of school, social services contacted me and said, hey, would you be interested in taking a little boy with Down syndrome? And I was like, what?
Why you?
Well, they said someone put my name forward, but for breach of confidentiality, they couldn't tell me who. My boyfriend at the time was like using a lot of drugs, injecting. My house was definitely not safe. It was awful. We used to fight, like physically fight all the time in front of my daughter, and the police would come to our house all the time. He went to several treatment centers, and then he would be okay for a little bit and then not. He worked construction, which was probably a shitty job for him to work in because it's just all over there. But then in my third year of nursing school, social services called me and asked me if I wanted this child. I said I'd go and see him, and then he was just so cute. And I was like, okay, I'll take him. He was 2 at the time, but basically like a baby. He was on home oxygen. He couldn't feed himself. He couldn't walk. He still drank from a baby bottle. And
you're still drinking?
yes, but not super heavily at that point. But the first year, honestly, I cried every single day. And I was like, what have I done? Why did I take this child on? He was so sick. He was in the hospital all the time. The nurses at the hospital wanted me to stay there with him all the time. And I was like, well, I'm in nursing school. Like, I have to do clinical. I have to do all of these things. Like, I can't stay here with this baby all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I think I took on more than I could handle.
Mm-hmm.
And my boyfriend went to treatment, and I went to the bar and met someone there. So then him and I started using drugs heavily. It got bad fast. I left the kids at daycare all the time and forget to pick them up. My daughter was 10 at the time, and my boy was on home oxygen and had a lot of health concerns, and I used to leave them alone overnight all the time. All sorts of not great things. I barely finished my last year of school. Like, that was my final 4 months of school. I was talking on the phone to my friend and just blabbing all this shit that I felt so guilty about. And I knew that I was falling fast. Everybody that I was partying with at the time would go to bed, and I would just do the rest of everything there and stay awake.
With your 2 kids in the house?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I had my sister's daughter at the time at my house also. And so last day that I used drugs or hard drugs, I did it with my boyfriend at the time through school. I was talking on the phone to my friend, just saying all this shit I felt guilty for. And my friend called my dad and ratted me out. And I was so angry. I didn't talk to my friend for a whole year because I was so mad. My sister came, grabbed the kids. The next day, my family had like an intervention for me. And my sister, my 2 best friends, and a couple of other people that I knew were at my house. And they said they were very concerned about me. They, what was I going to do to try and change and be better? What friends was I going to get rid of? All of these kinds of things. We made a plan. They wanted me to go to treatment, but I did not because I was trying to get a job at the health region. And so I quit using hard drugs 1 month before I got hired at the health region.
So your sister came and took your kids, and then they had an intervention, and now your whole family's sitting there, and like that is a very sobering experience to have all of your people sitting around you who love you, knowing all of the things. And there you are. Like, you probably didn't wake up that morning expecting to walk into that situation. So can you tell us
No, I
about, like,
did not.
how did that feel for you? Were you relieved that you didn't have to lie anymore? Did you feel like shit because now everyone knows? Like, tell us about that.
I was angry,
Mhm.
extremely angry, especially at my friend for tattling on me.
Oh, this is her fault.
His fault, yeah,
His fault.
is definitely what I said, or felt for a long time. I was a little bit relieved because I didn't have to hide anymore. Everybody knew what I was doing. I'm sure they already knew anyways. I felt betrayed, and I was ready to quit to be better for the kids. And, I felt guilty for having put my daughter through so much shit. And she had such bad anxiety and things like that. I felt like a real shitty mom. Oh, she saw a lot of needle use in the house, not from me, but from my partner at the time. A lot of blood everywhere.
Like violence?
Yes, and like blood from the needles. He wasn't a very good user, and just it was not great. We had a lot of violence, lots of holes in the walls, lots of times where I would hide in my daughter's room trying to block the door so that he couldn't get in. Tons of screaming, the police there. Oftentimes my sister would come running over with like a baseball bat ready to like beat him. I knew I was an addict. I knew I had problems. I knew I needed to stop. But I maybe wouldn't have stopped that day.
So you weren't yet ready to take responsibility for your healing?
No.
For forward motion?
No, definitely not.
Okay.
And I was mad that my sister took the kids and that they didn't trust me, but for very good reason. They
But you
shouldn't
didn't
have.
see that at the time?
No.
Yeah.
No.
So
And
now
I
you
was
want to use
hurt
more.
because I felt like they ganged up on me.
Yes. Assholes.
Right?
Right?
Even though they're trying to save my life.
Yeah. Well, we don't see that, right?
No. I did not use, though. I quit everything. I quit drinking. I quit everything. I went to a lot of meetings, tons of them, almost daily. I think I did almost 90 and 90. So the first little bit that I was going to meetings, I did not see it as I knew I had a problem, but I didn't see it as like my fault. After hearing a bunch of people, reading some of the literature, trying to go through the steps on my own, it just wasn't super great. I mean, it helped me to a point where I didn't use, because I felt like I owed it to my daughter mostly, because I just felt so much guilt for the things that I had put her through. I definitely had anger problems for sure. I should have went to counseling then, but I definitely didn't. And so then I saw all these people having recovery and having great things start happening to them, and I wanted those things. And I wanted a job. I wanted to not have wasted all the money that I spent on school. So I really tried to be calmer, even though, oftentimes I wasn't. I was still quite an angry person. I tried to take my daughter out and do things. I tried to get my son into lots of activities and things to try and help him grow. I still felt super overwhelmed, though. My son was a lot of work and sick and all of those things. So it was very overwhelming still, but I felt like I had to prove it to other people. So definitely ego, trying to prove a lot of things to other people, maybe not necessarily myself at the time. I wanted to repair the relationship with my daughter because I knew it was very damaged for sure. Yep, I did get mad at her quite often. I yelled a lot.
Try to take her out and do fun things and then just yell at her the whole time?
Well, not the whole time, but when we'd get back, sometimes I'd yell.
Yeah.
And so in our house for a while, it was like survival of the fittest. And who's going to win this battle kind of thing. Yeah, so then I got hired at the health region, which was a good motivator for me
Mhm.
also to stay clean. And at the time, I think I felt really ashamed, just guilty. You know, people in healthcare shouldn't be doing
Mhm.
drugs or things like that. Yeah, so then I didn't drink or anything for quite some time, but like I jumped from one dude to the next basically. Didn't heal from the first one or anything like that, and just felt like if I still continued to go out but not use, that maybe he would like me more or something. For sure, I definitely always had a fixing mindset for people.
Mhm.
For many years that happened. The guy and I ended up dating for a long period of time, and then his daughter came to live with us, and she was a year older than my daughter. And so then 2 teenage daughters in the house was a nightmare.
Mhm.
But we managed. We managed. It was okay. We all came out alive. But the drinking and partying of my partner, I just couldn't handle anymore. Like, I just couldn't take it. And so I would drink to kind of try and deal with that. And so then I had been working at the health region for quite some time. And I used to go to lots of local union meetings.
Mhm.
There was a president there that would never give a budget. She kept saying, "Oh, yeah, I'll bring it next time. I'll bring it next time," and never brought it. So then there was an election for president. And I don't think that person ever thought anybody would ever run against her. And so I ran against her and ended up getting the position. And they had to give me over the books. Right away, when they gave me all the bank statements and the checks and everything that had been processed, I noticed some inconsistencies. There was a name signed on the check that did not look like the person's signature that was supposed to have signed it.
Mhm.
And that person had the most unique writing.
Mhm.
And so I gave the books over to my friend that was on the executive at the time as well. And I said, just look at this and tell me what you think. I'm not going to say anything. You just look. And she was like, oh no, this is not good. So then this is when Tracy Zambori and I started becoming very close. We had to spend a lot of time together. The person got charged. And so during the time that I found out until court was about a 3-year process. In that time, the person bullied me at work immensely. This was at Park Centre,
What's that?
a long-term care facility in Saskatoon.
Okay.
And oftentimes I would have to work with this woman, and she was just terribly mean to me. And the whole time she would just say, "Oh, people are making lies about me. I didn't do these things." And there had also been a huge incident at work where a patient caught on fire. I was there, like helping put out the fire and trying to wait for emergency services to come, trying to, you know, put saline on her and like soaked pads all over her. Like her skin was just like burnt off. It was awful. And
Mhm.
she was in terrible distress and in shock and kept standing up and sitting down, standing up and sitting down. And there was a million things that happened that day that could have gone way differently. Um, the first responders took a very long time to get there. You know, we were not prepared for such a huge thing. At the time, we didn't know if you could use a fire extinguisher on a person or not. But just so everyone knows, you can use a fire extinguisher on a person. But honestly, you're just not prepared for something like that in a long-term care home. And so then I also had this stuff going on with this lady. In November 2019, I started on some antidepressants, and they were not the right kind for me. They made me extremely angry. Like, I've never been so angry and unable to cope with anything. And so then I had to go through a few med changes and things like that. Then the time came where everybody had to stay at home, and everything just became so much worse. I went off work a month prior to everyone having to stay home.
Mhm.
I don't think I actually understood depression until it like smacked me right in the face. and I couldn't get out of bed. I started drinking a lot. I drank like a 2-6 to myself every day. And then I just ended up taking almost 3 years off of work. My partner and I broke up in that time, like shortly into the staying at home.
The big stay at home.
The big stay at home. And my life just kind of crumbled in front of me. The codependency of that relationship, I think I didn't reach out. I became super isolated. And then I just kind of gave up on life. I tried to commit suicide a couple of times. The first time I just really wanted to die. And I had firearms in my house. So I had a loaded firearm and I went in my daughter's room, sitting there crying.
Was she in the room?
Yep. And she was hysterically crying, and I had it to my throat. At one point I had it in my mouth. I just kept telling my daughter I wanted to die. And what a horrible thing for a young kid to have to go through. Like,
How old was she at the time?
16.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's going through all her own emotions and her own stresses and her own depression. I really put her through the ringer. Another time I took a whole bunch of pills and drank a bunch. And so then I had to go to the hospital and get my stomach pumped.
And you're an RN
Yes.
at this time.
Yes. They wanted me to be a patient at Dubé, but I argued. My sister took the firearms out of my house. I started going back to NA. It was extremely hard to get over and deal with all of those emotions while dealing with everything else and having to go to court for this lady. And when I went to court that day to hear her sentencing, I left so angry because I thought that there would be more of a punishment than there was. She was still allowed to be a nurse that whole time, so she had worked a lot of overtime. She had no problem handing over a check for $20,000 at court. And because she frauded a company, not a person, she was still able to work with vulnerable people, which killed my soul. And so in the news that night, it came out that this lady had stolen a bunch of money, but also in the news said that I tried to commit suicide. So I'm grateful that my family had already known about all of that, because now if you Google that article, that is in there. Speaking of Tracy Zambori, she was an exceptional support person through that whole incident. I could call her at any time of the day. You know, she was there for me professionally, but also there for me as a friend.
So Tracy Zambori, for anyone who might not know, is the president of the Saskatchewan Union of Nurses. She's an avid supporter of this platform.
Yes.
Yeah. People
have been affected in her family by drugs as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so we became quite close. I'm very appreciative for her and the support that she gave me during that time. And still now, I know I could call her any time of the day and she would be there for me.
So speaking of which, why don't we take a quick break? We'll hear from today's sponsors and then we will start talking some more recovery.
Sounds good.
Okay. In a 2024 survey, 86% of Saskatchewan registered nurses reported patients being put at risk due to short staffing. Emergency departments are closing, wait times are increasing, and frontline nurses are being pushed to the brink. This crisis impacts every corner of our healthcare system. The Saskatchewan Union of Nurses is calling for immediate, evidence-based solutions to ensure safe staffing levels, improved retention, and protect the quality of care all Saskatchewan residents deserve. Learn more at www.sun-nurses.sk.ca or find their link in the show notes below. Warrior Mentality, empowering individuals to conquer their inner battles through resilience, self-discovery, and personal growth. Embrace your journey and transform struggles into strength with Warrior Mentality. To learn more, find their link in the show notes. All right. EHN Canada is Canada's leading provider of mental health and addiction services, providing evidence-based, medically assisted care with 1-year wraparound services for those suffering from substance use disorder. In Saskatchewan, their care is 100% supported by Saskatchewan Health. To learn more, find their link in the show notes below. Wellness News, Choice for Healthy Living, is a local resource that works to connect people to health and wellness-related products, services, and expert advice from industry professionals, locally allowing us to connect and engage. Check out wellnessnews.ca or skwellnesshub.ca today to learn more. If you'd like to see our content uncensored, we are now offering channel memberships. There is a lot of things we can't show you without getting restricted, so if you want the full conversation or to check out our merch, or if you want to show us some love and buy us a coffee, all of those links are in the show notes below. When did you start working at Dubé?
When I was ready to return to work, they wanted me to go back to Parkridge. However, I argued and insisted that I was not ever going to go back to work there because the woman was still working there. And so I got a position at Dubé, which was great because I always wanted to work at Dubé anyway. I kind of went into nursing for mental health. So it actually worked out great. My first day there was probably my best first day of work ever. The nurses there were so nice.
Did they know where you had come from? Not necessarily where you came from as like through your employment, but did they know that you had, come through all of this addiction and suicide attempts and all, like, did they know about you when you showed up?
No.
Okay.
But they fairly soon knew. I'm a pretty open person, so because everybody always asks, oh, where did you work before this? Where was that? Blah, blah, blah. And so I would say, well, I worked at this place, but it wasn't so great. And all these things happened. And so, yeah, it actually was or is a great place to work. The staff are very helpful and friendly to other nurses. And you can ask them a lot of questions and not feel dumb, whereas some places people are like, you should probably know that answer. So I felt very supported. Everybody knows that I'm in recovery, even like the psychiatrist and everybody who works there pretty much knows that I'm in recovery. I often share it with my patients as well. Sometimes I feel like they don't have a whole lot of people that they can connect with on that level when they're there. And so, I want my patients to also know that, it's not just them that struggles. Everybody struggles too. I'm definitely one of the people that struggles along with them. I usually hug my patients, which some people think is not great, or, we have a very different clientele sometimes. But I hug everybody and I don't care what people say. Sometimes people just really need a hug. Even a few weeks ago, I had a patient and I gave him a hug and he just started crying and said, I haven't been hugged in months. And, sometimes that's all it takes to just kind of make someone's day. There's not a whole lot of things that you can look forward to in there. So, some things are just physical touch is very important.
So did someone hug you along the way?
Yes, lots of people hugged me. Also, when I was in the hospital, when I had to get my stomach pumped, I don't remember a whole lot, but I remember a nurse just hugging me and holding me while I just cried and cried. I have no idea what her face looked like or anything, but I just remember her holding me and hugging me and crying. And like for me at NA meetings, I also hug everybody in the meetings. Or for an extended period of time, I used to always hug everybody. I would be like the greeter at the door. And sometimes people would look at me like, what the hell?
You can get in trouble for that.
Yes, you can. Most people were pretty receptive. Sometimes they just kind of like stand there, like give you like a little tap. But there was a period of time not so long ago for about 18 months or so that I was not able to be myself there and not able to hug people.
Why?
I was in a relationship that was extremely controlling. I was not allowed, according to him, and I let him overpower me like that.
you go to work at the Dubé, you start helping people using your lived experiences,
Yes.
right? To help people there. And then you find yourself in a relationship?
I felt like at the time I was back to my normal self. I was happy. I was independent. I had gone to counseling in the time that I wasn't at meetings and the time that I was off work. I had done a lot of work on myself. And so then I thought, yeah, okay, I'm probably ready for a relationship. It had been a long time since I had been in a relationship. At first, it was good. I could still be myself, but slowly I could feel that I was changing myself to be who that person wanted me to be. And sometimes I would look at my patients and be like, oh my gosh, I'm living this person's life right now. And it is crazy that I'm on the outside and that person's on the inside, but basically we are living the same life.
So you're sober.
Yes.
You're involved in the recovery community.
Yeah.
And now you have found yourself inside another secret.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. I was just, I think, so happy to be in a relationship and have somebody like me like that again.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see the things as controlling at the time. I think I tried to see them as respect and how I would respect that person and not hug people. But at the same time, it changed who I was because
Mm-hmm.
I am a huggy person. And I also became quite isolated after.
What was happening?
My partner at the time just, I think, was insecure. And if I looked at anywhere other than him, it was an argument. I think for me, eventually it just got easier for me to just do what I knew wouldn't upset him rather than be myself. And so slowly I just turned into this shell of a person that I didn't recognize anymore. It was like a trauma bond, I feel, and definitely codependent relationship. I almost felt like I was living two separate lives because at work I would be my bubbly self and I would hug people, but then when I would go to meetings or be at home, I was not bubbly. And yeah, it just kind of snowballed from there into this big problem.
Let's talk about like your recovery through all of this, like you like we've already discussed, you're involved in the recovery community. You did get a sponsor. You did do the things that were suggested to you. Where did the rubber hit the road for you?
I think that the rubber finally just hit the road just in January this year, where I've actually tried to change a whole lot of things and sat and did the steps with a sponsor. I'm starting to learn a lot more about myself now, I think. At the end of the year, I was still...
End of the year of what?
Of this past year. So like
Okay.
December 2024. I was smoking a lot of weed. So, and my partner at the time just kept telling me that I was lying and I was dishonest and, I shouldn't be collecting your key tags and taking cakes or anything like that. So then I decided that I would take a white key tag. Also, like growing up in BC and not doing all the steps thoroughly, for me, I think I just didn't see weed as a drug or mind-altering substance. Also, I have epilepsy, so I can have a card for it. And it was really hard for me to try and let go. Then in December, my partner and I broke up, and it was devastating. And not because it ended. I think it was just because he was like my drug, I think. And I just wanted everything my way and wanted to be with that person, even though there was like no future whatsoever. And it was really hard for me to try and let go. But that person was a lot stronger than me and just completely disconnected themselves from my life. As much as I had people around me that were supporting and things like that, I felt really alone and that I had to go through all of those feelings by myself. At the time, also, there was this like crazy virus going around. And so the kids were sick and in the hospital, and it was a whole lot of stress. And I just remember being in the hospital just crying and crying. And I was doing quite a few online meetings then because I was worried that I was going to go to an in-person meeting and he was going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
So I was doing lots of online meetings, and this one online meeting just truly saved my life. I would just go on there and scream and cry. And one day I just went out to the nursing desk. My son was being a brat in the hospital and wouldn't go to sleep. The baby that I have that we will go back to because I forgot about her, she threw up all over the bed in there. And I just went to the nursing desk and I just laid on the dirty floor in the hospital crying. And I was like, I give up. I just give up. The nurses were like, just go outside. Go take a few minutes outside. We've got the kids. Don't worry about it. It'll be okay. And I just went outside and cried and cried. A few days later, I went to go visit my dad in New Brunswick for just to clear my mind. It was the best thing I could have done, honestly. It reset me, got me away from people so I could, and the kids and everything, so I could just focus on myself. Overall, my mind is so much better. I have a sponsor that is very great. Sometimes I'm not the greatest at reaching out and not the greatest at communication because I just have so much going on in my life.
Mm-hmm.
But she knows that and she reaches out to me. Hey, you haven't connected in a couple of days. How's it going?
Mm-hmm. Talk to me about working at Dubé. I mean, you come into people having all sorts of struggles,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I would even think that in light of this wild uptick in overdoses here in Saskatoon since January, I think the last stat that came out from the fire department was 901 overdoses since January. Certainly you have seen some of that.
Yes, for sure.
So like, and a very hot topic in the news right now, at this time in April of 2025 is service provider burnout, right? So like, talk to me about maintaining your recovery, right? I mean, and I'm sure that the stories we've heard from you today are the very tip of the iceberg. You know, having gone through all of that, having had psychosis and having had, being in different programs yourself, now people are coming in off the street having overdosed, having complexities.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. What's that like on a Monday morning?
I think sometimes they just need somebody who can talk to them as a human being.
Mm-hmm.
Some people get angry or yell and holler, but oftentimes they actually have meaningful things that they're saying. They just don't know how to say it other than an aggressive tone or things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I have a much different approach than most people. I'm okay with someone screaming, yelling in my face. There's only been maybe 2 times where I really felt like I was gonna get attacked. For the most part, people scream and holler or yell or, throw things. And I'm able to most times settle them and have a conversation with them and treat them like a human being. I have a soft approach when I go talk to them. If they're angry, I always just say, it's okay to be angry. It's okay to yell. I'm here and I'm listening and I'm trying to understand where you're coming from.
Mm-hmm.
I've come off drugs too before. I know what it's like. I know that your whole body's hurting. I know that you're sick. I know that you're feeling not heard, or you think people are judging you because you don't have a home and you're in psychosis and things like that. I mean, sometimes people, you can't rationalize with certain people and things like that. And most people will say, I'm triggered or I'm mad or I'm going to punch something. And you have to listen to that. Also, I think having a child with exceptional needs that is nonverbal also has taught me a lot about body language and nonverbal communication. And so, sometimes I'll have my 6 feet space, but I'm still going to stand there and talk to the person. Sometimes if the person's laying in bed, I get down to their level and talk to them. I don't hover over top of them. For the most part, people just don't feel loved, I think, and don't feel a part of.
You know what that feels like.
I do. And it sucks. And again, that's why I hug most of my patients. With my patients, I always ask if I can hug them. I don't just
What if they say
automatically
no?
hug
Do you
them.
go in anyways, like you do at the
No,
meetings?
no, I definitely don't. But I'll be like, okay, what if you do change your mind and want to hug? Like, I'm definitely here to
I'm a
hug you.
good hugger.
Yes.
I've been told.
You know, they don't have to be stuck at where they were. There is people out there that can help and can support you. And, you know, just sometimes it's really hard to find those people. You know, if people don't want to change, that's okay too. As long as they still know that they're loved and they're a human being, you know, still have potential to do whatever they would like. I think that that's really important. It takes a lot of time to change things, but I hope in time things will change so that they can get into housing and, you know, don't have to go to a shelter from there. If I had $1 billion, there's a lot of things that I would change and try and do differently.
You think housing's the answer?
I think it has a huge thing to do with it, but I also think that there's not enough counselors, there's not enough treatment centers, there's not enough detox centers. You know, it's a failing
Aftercare.
system.
Do you think somebody that hasn't had their power taken or that hasn't been stripped of their dignity could have the same level of insight with these things as you do?
My personal opinion is not overly. And my reason for that is because take depression, for example. I've learned about depression in school. I know all about it. My daughter experienced depression through high school. You know, I used to fight with her every single day and holler and scream at her to get out of bed and get to school. And she would say she's sick and she can't go and her stomach hurts and, you know, she didn't want to shower and all of these things. And I would just yell and scream at her to get to school. And then when depression kicked me in the face and I couldn't get out of bed and all of those things, I did not truly understand it until it happened to me. And, you know, sometimes when you haven't dealt with addictions in your own family, whether yourself or a loved one, it's hard to understand the true feelings. I mean, you can learn about it and all of those things, and you can imagine what it's like, and you can imagine it's shitty, but until it rips your heart apart, I find that it's really hard to really relate.
Lived experiences in education second to none.
Yes.
That's our tagline.
Yes, exactly. You can know the signs and the symptoms and guess what it feels like, but you don't really actually know that you can't get out of bed, that you can't shower, that you can't take your mail out of your mailbox. You know, just like simple little things that you wouldn't think of.
Yeah. Yeah. Like having experienced your house being foreclosed on, you automatically don't want to open any letter that comes from the bank.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
You know, when you've gone bankrupt, you don't want to open the CRA letters.
Exactly.
You know, like and it's very challenging to do these things. And to this very day, like when I get an email from CRA, like ooh. And I've done nothing wrong. I know that my taxes are done well enough. Like if I owe anything, it's like a couple $100 maybe, you know, like
Yes.
there's not going to be like a $500,000, oh, you owe, you know, so much. But still, when I get that email, you know, still it's hard.
I don't open some mail right now. I just put it in the stack.
Yeah. So someone's out there today struggling like you were in relationships, in substance use, in all of these different things, challenging parenting, complex needs kids, anything like that. I know there's a lot we didn't touch on. I feel like we're going to have you back someday to really take apart some of your experiences because there's so much left.
Yes.
You know, and I know this and you know this. But if there's anyone out there struggling in any way like you once have or are currently, what would you like to, is there anything you'd like to leave us with?
I think just know that you are loved by people. There is places where people can help you feel like a person. There is resources for people. Sometimes it's hard to get into them, but there is things. Finding people that you can connect with is super important. Even if you have no desire to quit using yet, there is still people that you can connect with and, you know, have meaningful relationships and start to learn your own worth. It takes a long time though, but but it's definitely possible. All the people who are struggling with addictions right now, I feel for you. All the people who have overdosed or lost their lives is heartbreaking. Um, and just briefly, I'll say, because I missed it, but I took in a baby that was 3 weeks old and she's 2 now. Her parents left me next of kin on her and knew that I would give her a good life. And I think that's why they picked me to take her. The dad ended up having an overdose and died. And he was the guy that I dated all through my nursing school.
What's your relationship like with your kids today?
Oh, my kids today, it's actually very good. My daughter and I have repaired our relationship. She's probably one of my best friends. She's in university for a psychology degree. And so she's very blunt and says things how they are, which I appreciate because sometimes I need to hear certain things, such as breaking up in this last relationship. She told me, so and so gave you this baby because he knew that you would give her a good life, but you're giving her the same life you gave me right now. And that's not fair. So you need to pull your shit together and think about those things. And I was like, ooh, dagger to the heart. Good point. Good point. And so I appreciate her very much. I appreciate our relationship. I'm grateful that she accepted me for all my mistakes, knowing that I did the best I could at the time with what I had. My son, even though he is still very spirited on his own, he's come a long way and we have a good relationship. He was also really abusive for a while and I was debating whether having to put him into a group home or not.
He has Down syndrome.
Yes, and he has more than just the Down syndrome. He has FAS and he has severe intellectual disability. He's nonverbal. He's hard of hearing. He's still incontinent. There's a whole lot of things. And school is a nightmare for us. But he's a happy guy now. And, you know, I've weaned him off some antipsychotics that I didn't think he needed anymore. And he's just turned into a fairly nice boy now, which is good. The baby, she was addicted to drugs until she was 5 months old. And I thought for sure she was going to be delayed, but she is the smartest little girl. And for being 2, she knows so much and is so smart and so loved. And I'm grateful for the people that I have in my life because I share her with my best friend, and my boy I share with another lady because I work a lot, and it's so nice. And honestly, it takes a village, and I'm grateful for everybody in my life. The kids are very loved, and they know they're very loved.
Stacey, it's been an honor walking through this with you today. I am going to say this on tape. I would love to have you back.
Sure. Now that I've done it once, I'm not so scared.
Good. Thank you so much for joining me today, and we'll cap it there. Take good care, my friend.
Okay, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Say, this is Hard Knocks Talks.